try, the more I fall. I finally see.
Welcome to the Liberating Secret with your host, author and teacher, Sylvia Pierce. The Liberating Secret is dedicated to revealing the mystery of the gospel, which is Christ in you, the only hope of glory. Let's join Sylvia Pierce for today's lesson.
In a desert land.
Welcome to the Liberating Secret. My name is Sylvia Pierce. So glad to be with you today, and I'm with my very precious friend Bill Bauer, all the way from California. Yay, the great CA, California.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Can't believe all the greenery out here, Sylvia, and away from the cement of Los Angeles again, and you know the fast life there. Here it's so chill and so kicked back. I love it.
Well, you know what, Bill? This is what I love thinking about you out there. I know you're a tennis pro. You've always loved tennis. You played tennis even as a youth, but you teach it at UCLA. Also an actor, and I love that about you. I love that.
Thanks.
I mean, he is a great actor. I mean, what he's saying here is not an act either. It's the reality of his whole heart. But anyway, and you've been in several plays out there. Is that right?
I have, yeah. I was in a play not too long ago. It was probably over a year ago now. Played by Moliere, a wild comedy. Had a great, crazy role I played, the 17th century. It was in the 17th century, wore a long wig, and it was a comedic role and a hilarious role. I had just such a great time playing it. And
how did you play it seriously and not laugh yourself?
I had to work at that a little bit.
I bet you did.
Many times in rehearsals, we would just, break down laughing, because it got so ridiculous. But yeah, I had a great time. So, yeah, so loving that. And I always kid people. I always tell them on the tennis courts, I'm actually entering his courts with praise.
Wow.
I say that, see, there's the biblical backing for tennis, tennis courts. That's pretty weak, but...
no, it's not. It's really great.
Yeah, thanks.
And let me tell you, this man, I always think of him out there. He used to go to the Good Earth all the time. I don't know if that restaurant is still there or not.
Oh, yes, it is.
Well, and all these young boys would follow him around, and he was like Elijah or something with the school of prophets or something out there. And they would follow him around, and just his ease and relaxed life. You see, he truly does have the true relaxed life, the life that's not of stress and trying and struggling and striving, and the released life of Christ within him. That's what really the liberating secret brings.
Wow.
And that's what's appealing. The Bible says, when Christ be lifted up, you'll draw all people to you, and you do that, Bill.
Oh,
you
thanks,
do
Sylvia.
that.
Well, Sylvia just reminded me, she talked about the Good Earth restaurant, which is one of my all-time favorite restaurants, which just closed down. All of them have closed down, and so I kid all my friends saying I'm going to a 12-step Good Earth Anonymous meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm so devastated they closed it down. But one time Norman Grubb, and we've been talking about Norman, who was our mentor, he was in his late 80s or mid 80s at the time, and I took him to the Good Earth restaurant, and I just thought of this. Sylvia's always wanting me to imitate Norman, so I just thought of this little illustration. And so there were two Good Earths. There was right almost next to each other on this corner in Westwood, California, and there was a Good Earth upstairs, and then there was a Good Earth downstairs. So one time, I went with Norman to the one downstairs, and Norman said, "Oh, my dear, we're going to the Good Earth in hell today." I said, "Oh my gosh." Norman was a crack up. So then a couple of days later, we had to go to the upstairs Good Earth. "Oh, Bill, we're going to the Good Earth in heaven today. Wonderful, my dear." So it was just a crack up.
You're the crack up.
He was just amazing guy, just very, very funny. And then we're in the Good Earth from hell, and we're having lunch, and this dear woman believer comes up to us and says, "Oh," and Norman's sitting in the booth there, and he's just passed out, as he often would do. He was actually experiencing union with God. Wow. It was just amazing. That's what I noticed when I first met him. I thought, that guy's actually experiencing God. And you'd go up to him and you'd say, he'd be kind of passed out there, and you'd say, "Oh, Norman, you must be tired today." And he'd say, "Oh, no, my dear. I'm eating living. I'm feeding on living bread, my dear." And everyone would think that's just nice for that little old man to say that he's really tired. And I thought, I would be there thinking, he's actually doing that. Well, he was doing that at the Good Earth, and this young woman believer comes up to him and says, "Oh, are you Norman Grubb? Are you guys coming to our church today?" I would go to the Vineyard Christian Fellowship, a wonderful church, and Norman popped up and said, "Oh no, Bill only goes to church on Easter and holidays, my dear. Easter and Christmas, I think." and the dear woman believer didn't know what to do with that, and then he just passed out into experiencing union again. It was just pretty hilarious. You had to be there, I guess.
Bill, tell us the story about what happened in Arrowhead. When you were bunking together in the same room.
Oh, yeah. Norman was pretty amazing because he would get up at 4 o'clock every morning. He was the last one to go to bed at night. He'd stay up late talking with everyone. And then he'd get up at 4 o'clock every morning and go out and write these little letters to people all around the world, personal letters back to them. He wrote thousands of them. And he wasn't a good typist. So he'd just be doing this with one little finger. I thought, how is he writing all these letters with one finger? But anyway, one night, we were in the same bunk room and so forth together, and he gets up at 4 o'clock, and he doesn't want to wake me up. So he's searching for this little pin flashlight he had, because he wants to turn it on, but doesn't want to wake me up. So he's walking around the room, and he's bumping into everything, trying to find this little pin light of his. He's bumping around, crashing, and he was pretty hilarious because every time he would almost do anything, he would be thankful. So he'd be bumping into these chairs and beds. Oh, thank you, my dear, thank you. He hit the bed. Oh, thank you, my dear, thank you. Yes, yeah. And I'm wide awake. I wanted to get some sleep that night. I remember I just was really pretty tired, and he kept doing this, and he kept blessing and thanking everything he would bump into. And I'm thinking, Norman, just turn on the light, would you please? Which, of course, he didn't. Anyway, he finally found it and finally went out, and I heard him typing outside the room. So he was quite a character, just a hilarious guy.
Well, he was, but he had a very serious thing to tell us, though. You remember him saying to us, we always say we have human nature. And he says, oh no, we don't have any human nature. The human doesn't have a nature of its own.
Wow.
So I think we need to talk about that. Now, this
Sounds
is more
great.
serious note, and we laughed with him, but I'm telling you, these are the kind of things that really transformed us. I mean, we could see the joy in him. We could see, my Lord, there wasn't anybody that he exuded love everywhere he was. But he was strong in what he knew the truth was and stood strong on it. And used to tell us, he used to talk about the human not even having a nature of its own. And we would think, now, you know what? You said this in a couple of other times that we were together. You said you used to think that we had three natures, that we had a human nature, that we had a divine nature, and we had a satanic nature, still had the satanic nature. And you know what? One time I said that to my husband, and he said, well, my gosh, that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. So it's like, and here Norman says, no. The human doesn't have any nature of its own at all. Wow. Now that's amazing. So what does that mean? What does nature mean to you, Bill?
Well, nature to me means, in a sense, your state of being, your life, the power source in you. But really, it's your very life. It's really who and what you are, really. And so when I found out when he said that, I just thought, wow. He went on to say that, he's saying, well, of course, there's humanity with its appetites and capacities, but nature really is a deity nature. It's what life is in you corresponds really to a little tiny deity or the divine nature. And we bring up Ephesians 2, you once walked according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now dwelleth in those who are disobedient, and were by nature children of wrath. So before you're born again, you had this nature in you that was really the spirit of error. It was a nature. And then we find out we're partakers of the divine nature.
Yes.
So you have one of the, or you have one of those natures. So you become a Christian, and that satanic sin nature is taken out, and the divine nature comes in, and that is your true nature. But you really don't have a nature of your own, and that kind of corresponds, Sylvia, to what we were talking about, that you're not just yourself with a life of your own. You're not a self by yourself with a life of your own. You're not just, I thought I was just I alone. I was never just I alone. I was either had the spirit of error living through me, as if it were me before I was born again, and now it's Christ living in me as if it was me, but it's really him. So you have one of those natures. You're not born again. You have the satanic nature. After you're born again, you have Christ's nature, but we don't know that. We sometimes think, I just have my own nature with its own power source, and we don't know that really, at bottom, is the satanic nature. It's his lie. He's deceiving you into thinking you have your own life and your own power, and he deceives you in that arena.
That's right. And I think the problem is we mix the two. We mix it up. I mean, one time I was doing a meeting and I asked people, I said, how many times have you heard that your heart is deceitful and wicked? Wicked. Your heart is wicked. And as a Christian, we're taught that. And people said, oh, yeah, I've heard that. Oh, my heart is wicked, desperately wicked. And I said, that's who you were. That's not who you are, but that's who you were. Because when you were with a satanic nature, your heart certainly was wicked and desperately wicked. So that's why you needed the new birth. The whole new birth is about the old being out, the new being in, you see. So that's what the new birth is about. So instead of mixing, and that's why we say, well, I still, have the old nature. And the Bible says I have the divine nature, but I still have the human nature. I've got three, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, you know what? In Norman, that was pretty radical to think the human doesn't have its own nature. One time I was talking to a minister, and I said, have you read a lot of Norman stuff? Well, not too much. He says, you don't even have a nature at all. And I says, well, may I explain that? And he said, well, please do. And I said, he's saying that we don't have our own power source, that we're not our own life, that the human being is a simple, powerless container that does not have its own life, but is living from the life of another. So we're a derivative being, really. Right. We derive our nature from the one that lives in us. So actually, when it says that we as Christians are partakers of a divine nature, partakers means you're deriving from the nature of the one that lives in you. So actually, our nature is formed by the one who lives in me.
That's right.
So who lived in me before? It says the Spirit, it says that now we're the prince and the power of air that now lives in the spirit, the children of disobedience. Okay? And that was a nature, a wrathful nature, causing you really to be the sinner you were. Not to say you weren't responsible. We talked about that before. We're not saying that. And not saying that you don't have consequences. We can't just say, well, Satan made me do everything.
Yeah.
He did. However, he was the essential sinner, but I was certainly cooperating with him along the way and loving, all the feelings of being powerful and thinking I was somebody. I like that, you see. But finally, when we come to Christ, you see, actually, I love this in Colossians, Bill. I often read this in Colossians. I have to remember where Colossians is, though, okay? Because it says, we have been delivered from the power of darkness and have been translated into the kingdom of his dear Son. So instead of mixing, okay, I've got an old nature and I've got I still have a deceitful heart, you're not believing the gospel. You're not believing that Christ was made sin on your behalf. You're not believing that you're delivered from the powers of Satan when you say that. So you say, so that's who you were. Oh, that's not who you are, you see? And so then do we say, okay, then I still have the human nature. That means I can still produce some kind of righteousness of my own. No, that's a lie. That's a lie. I have no, my flesh really is weak, and it's meant to be weak. It's not wrong to be weak. Actually, I'm a perfect nothing. When you know you're really, as having nothing, I can possess all things. You see? And it says, if you think you're something when you're really nothing, you deceive yourself. So I'm happy to be a nothing. Oh, but I'm not just a nothing. I'm filled with the fullness of Christ. And you are too, if you can take it and if you can believe the gospel. And so is Bill. That's what brings the joy and the peace, because he's our peace. He's our joy. He's our love. He's everything, every need you have. He's the fulfillment of it. He himself is.
Yeah, to think to get that you're a nothing in and of yourself, that you're an empty vessel, really will cost you everything.
It will.
It's not easy to get that because I found I was too full of myself.
Right.
And so as Watchman Nee says, you have to move out so he can move in. Mm-hmm. And so what you don't know is that at the cross, you did move out, because that independent self that thought it had a life of its own was crucified. That was really Satan's lie. That was crucified. That was taken out, and now Christ has come in. So to get a sense in which that I am crucified with Christ, that you're dead, that inflated I has been severed, that really will cost you everything, because we really think deep down, I did, that I could really kind of live the life. I'd say, well, no, I know Christ has to do it, but I jump right back into doing it apart from him and trusting in myself rather than trusting in another. So I always tell people it's not trying, it's trusting in another.
That's right. We really think, well, Christ can walk alongside me. He can help me. He can help me be good. And you see, that's very prideful, because we're saying that he's going to help me, independent from him, be good. He's not going to help you be good at all. He's not going to help you. He's going to be the goodness in you. He's going to be the righteousness in you. That's why when people came to Jesus and they said, Jesus, good master, he said, oh, don't call me good. There's none good but God.
That's right.
Now, why would he say that? He was the Son of God. He was deity in flesh. He was. He was saying that because that's how they saw him. They thought his flesh was good. They thought the vessel was the power, you see, and could produce goodness. And he says, creation's not good. Creation is weak, but creation is a derivative form that can hold and contain and express the Creator, who is the only good. See, there's only one good in the whole universe. There's only one independent being in the whole universe. You know who that is?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
That's God himself. Satan says, no, I'm going to be separate from God, and I'm going to be as the creature, as the created form, and I'm going to try real hard to be like the Creator. I'm going to be greater than the Creator. That was his fall. That was the sin, you see. Now, that's our secret sin as Christians. I say that secret because it's hardly known. That's the real sin of the believer. We think in our human selves, apart from Christ, that we can be righteous and good, and we try hard to do it. That's why we say the real sin is trying. Now, it's out of ignorance. It's not like Satan. Satan knew what he was doing. We do it out of ignorance because we think, oh gosh, I love Jesus with all my heart. I mean, look what he's done to me, for me. How can I pay him back? You can't pay him back. Can't. You just be available for his Holy Spirit to live in you and be the very life. Now that's the nature that we have. We have the divine nature of he himself living and moving inside of us. Wow.
Yes, and as Sylvia was saying, Christ is the one who does the good. Paul says in Romans 7 a very remarkable thing, I think, that, that just blasted me when I first heard it and taught correctly. The Apostle Paul says, it's no longer I who sin, but sin that dwells in me. So not only do we not do the good, Christ is the good one, who's the goodness, who does the good through us. It's another thing to catch that the real sinner is the spirit of error, is the devil, the Mr. Sin himself, who sins through you, and you agree with him.
Yes.
So that's why Paul said, not I, but Christ, not I, but sin is the counterpart of that in Romans 7. I mean, that's a remarkable thing for the Apostle Paul to say he's not doing the sinning, but it's the separate power of sin that's doing it through him.
Yes.
It's an amazing thing, making him think that he was the one that was doing it. It was Satan masquerading as him, making him think, I did it. Well, it was really the devil working through him and with the human at a certain point agreeing with the devil, and is therefore totally responsible, totally gets the consequences, needs the cleansing blood.
That's right. Well, the thing of it's important to understand doing the sinning through his flesh, because he has taken hold of his flesh, not his spirit. He's not taken hold of his spirit. He's taken hold and he's misusing our flesh. You see, it's an adulterous affair, really, is what we're doing. We're slipping out and having an affair with Satan. Doesn't mean that we're joined to Satan. It doesn't mean that we've become sinners again in heart and in nature. It's not,
Right.
and it's not, you see, but Satan has deceived us and made us think, that we can keep ourselves, that we can be the righteous person, that we can be good. I mean, that's a very outstanding thing to discover, is it's not I, but sin that actually does it. Another power that is deceiving me, causing me to think I'm separate. And if I fight him and fear him and try not to do it, there I am caught out again. You see, over and over again. That's like Paul in Romans 7, and all of us before we discover the truth. But it never was me that actually was doing the sinning. Not the real me, not the real self. That's the trick there. See, it says because so the human self is not the producer. That's what it's saying. Okay, the human self in Galatians 2:20 says, "Oh, not I, but Christ." So the human self is not producing righteousness. Well, the human self in Romans 7 is not producing the sin.
That's right.
See, when we know it's Satan, wait a minute, he's been defeated at the cross. Wait a minute, this is illegitimate. He doesn't have power over me. I have victory over this. And how do we? Because we take a leap of faith and we see that Christ is our life. Christ is our real keeper, and we stand in that truth. And I tell you, it took me a while because I continued to act out those sinful behaviors, and I could not conquer them. I could not. That was good for me to know that I couldn't conquer them. Why? Because I learned that I was weak flesh, and I was meant to be weak. It's right to be weak. But I had the keeper that lived in me, and that's what I had to continue to depend on. And as I depended on that, guess what? Those bad behaviors slipped away little by little. And one day I thought, what happened to me? I'm not insecure anymore. I'm not fearful anymore. I'm not trying to change my husband to get me happy. I'm not trying to, nothing outside. I've got joy. I've got peace. Where did that come from? Oh my gosh, that can't be me, because I couldn't drum it up myself. Oh my gosh, that's Christ in me. Mm-hmm. Wow, that happened. And I know it happened to you years ago too. Yeah. But I can tell you it was like almost 35, 40 years ago. We know what we're talking about. I mean, this happened to us that many years. It totally changed me. It totally gave me a new consciousness. It totally gave me the released life so that I don't strive. I can just be myself. And it's really Christ living. Wow. And you know what? He produces righteousness, and I'm loving, and it's beyond myself. I'm forgiving, and it's beyond me. You see, because he's the producer. I'm not the producer. I say this one thing. You see, if my human self, my humanity, could produce 1 ounce of sin, and that's what we do. We blame our humanity. We think it's the evil culprit, and we blame it, and Satan certainly tells us that lie. If I can produce my human self, my human humanity can produce 1 ounce of evil, there's a strong possibility that I can produce my own good, that I'm the producer of good. If that's the truth, I wouldn't even need a Savior.
That's right.
We would do away with the Savior altogether, you see. The human is nothing but a weak container of the life of another, you see. The weak, and expresses that life. We take it by, I'm telling you, it's radical to take it by faith. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't feel like it. We think this can't be true. I mean, the devil just torments us and condemns us, and we say, no, I'm taking no condemnation. I'm telling you, he's my life, and I'm going to stand on it.
Yes, and it comes back to this, you know, that we'll talk more in the next programs that come up, this whole idea of this deluded self stage,
right,
where we're trying to live the Christian life, and we think we actually can, and sometimes it's subconscious, produce some of these things apart from Christ.
Yes.
And it's a deluded self. And again, what is that deluded self? That deluded self thinking it has a power of its own, and a nature of its own, and a life of its own, which is Satan's great lie that he infected the whole human race with.
Well, we really will discuss this, and I think some of you have seen my chart presentation, What is Man? He always loves that, don't you?
That's a good one.
Well, yes, and that's where we bring out the deluded self. We're going to talk about that next time. Thank you so much for joining us, and may God richly bless you. Goodbye.
God bless.
The more I try, the more I fall.
You have been watching Liberating Secret with Sylvia Pierce. We want to send a special thank you to all our supporters that make this program possible. If you have been blessed by this program and would like to contact Sylvia, you can write her at P.O. Box 43268, Louisville, Kentucky 40253. That's P.O. Box 43268, Louisville, Kentucky 40253. You can also find more of Sylvia's teachings on our website. The web address is www.theliberating.secret.org. That's www.theliberating.secret.org. And be sure to watch again right here, Monday through Friday, at the same time for The Liberating Secret with author and teacher Sylvia Pierce. So until next time, may God richly bless you.